The chain hisses, heat bites your skin. Ash hangs in the air as a figure steps through the dark, eyes steady, robe bright against the flames. Rocks tremble, iron glows. A door you cannot see swings open beneath the earth. What if Jesus truly descended into hell during the 3 days between his death and resurrection? What happened in those first steps after death, the place Jesus warned about, past the great chasm into judgment or mercy? Many have feared being wrong about salvation and what comes after death. By the end, you will see exactly what Scripture says about where he went, what he did, and why it defines your eternal destiny. Welcome to Bible Stories and Mysteries. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Luke 23:46. The hill is silent. Only the wind remembers the cries. Blood darkens the wood, and the crowd dissolves into whispers. The body of Jesus hangs still, but the air hums as if creation itself has paused its breath. You would think this is the end. The Son of God has died. The spear has pierced his side. The world seems to have conquered its creator. Yet beneath the silence, something ancient begins to stir. The moment his spirit leaves his body, another world opens its eyes. It was not surrender, it was ignition. The veil between realms split wide open. In the temple, thick curtains tore from top to bottom as if invisible hands reached through stone and ripped time itself apart. The ground shook, graves opened, and the air became heavy with a trembling that was not of this world. It was the universe reacting to the entrance of its rightful king into the unseen. Picture that moment. The last breath leaving his lips, the sky dimming to black, the earth shivering under the weight of the cross. What looked like defeat was movement, purpose, power, traveling beneath the soil of creation. For centuries, the dead had gone down to the shadowed place the scriptures call Sheol, a realm divided, half rest and half ruin. The righteous waited in peace, the wicked in torment, and between them stretched a gulf no one could cross. The living could not see it, but heaven could. When Jesus died, his body rested in a borrowed tomb, but his spirit, alive, conscious, radiant, was already descending. The journey was not downward in defeat, but inward in dominion. He was not being dragged into death, he was walking into it as the only one with authority over it. Even silence obeyed him. The earth trembled because heaven had moved. The veil tore because distance had ended. What we call the end was actually the opening of an invasion, light entering a domain that had never known morning. And in that darkness, the impossible began. Hell felt a pulse. Shadows whispered to one another. The gates that had never opened since time began started to strain beneath the pressure of something pure. The underworld waited for the wail of another soul lost to death. Instead, it heard footsteps, steady, royal, unafraid. Darkness stirs. Not the quiet dark of night, but a living shadow. Thick, aware, trembling. For ages it had ruled unchallenged. Every mortal who entered never returned. Here, the voices of the lost drifted like smoke, each one echoing the same final truth. No man escapes. But this time the air changes. Something descends, not bound by death's weight, but carried by its own light. Every echo bends in reverence. The king has entered the realm of the dead. No torch burns here, and yet the corridors glow with his presence. No flame touches him, yet the heat itself seems to kneel. The watchers of the abyss feel the first tremor of fear they have ever known. For the first time since the fall, hell is no longer in control of its silence. In the visible world, his body lies cold in the tomb. Roman guards stand outside the stone, oblivious to the storm beneath their feet. The disciples hide behind locked doors, hearts broken, faith flickering like a candle at its end. But beneath their sorrow, something unstoppable is unfolding. This descent is not a defeat, it's a confrontation. Jesus moves through layers of shadow that no prophet ever dared to see. Around him, souls that once believed the promise lift their eyes. They recognize the light they have waited for. The patriarchs, the prophets, the faithful of ages, Abraham, Moses, Ruth, David, see him and understand. The promise has come in person. In the center of that realm lies a great divide, the chasm he once spoke of to those still living. On one side, the flames of torment twist in endless hunger. On the other, peace breathes like dawn waiting to rise. Between them is an abyss that no human soul has ever crossed. Until now. He does not shout. He does not struggle. He simply walks, and the elements of the unseen bend away from him. Darkness recognizes authority even when it hates it. The condemned recoil, covering their faces. The redeemed begin to rise, their eyes reflecting firelight turned into gold. Every promise ever spoken by the prophets begins to vibrate in the air around him. Words that had slept for centuries awaken, shaping themselves into reality. This is not the descent of a victim. It is the arrival of a liberator. His presence alone begins to unwrite the oldest law of the grave, that death owns all. In the heavenly courts, angels watch in silence. They are not sent to help, they are witnesses. This war will be won by one man alone. The Son who became flesh now invades the heart of darkness as both judge and redeemer. Below, the gates begin to fracture. The clang of unseen chains fills the air. The ground of the underworld ripples like liquid fire. Creation's oldest prison is about to receive its first and final trespasser, one who doesn't belong to death, but comes to dismantle it from within. The King walks deeper. The light follows, and in the chambers of the lost, despair itself begins to realize it is running out of time. The light spreads like breath through ancient corridors. It does not chase the dark, it replaces it. Every step Jesus takes burns a path through centuries of silence. The walls of that realm, carved from sorrow, begin to glow with something they have never known: hope. He moves toward a valley, unlike the rest, a quiet chamber beyond the reach of torment. Here dwell the faithful of old, waiting since the dawn of mankind. This is the place the prophets called paradise, known among men as the bosom of Abraham. No flames, no cries, only waiting hearts that believe the promise yet unseen. They rise as he approaches. Abraham, who once lifted a knife over his only son, sees the true Lamb at last. Moses, who glimpsed God's glory from a mountain, now stands before it unveiled. David recognizes the voice that sang through his psalms. The centuries collapse into a single moment of awe. This is not heaven, not yet. It is the holding place of the righteous, those who trusted God before the cross. They were safe, but not free. Their rest was real, yet incomplete. For no sacrifice of bulls or lambs could open the true gate of eternity. That gate waited for this moment, for this visitor. He looks upon them not as strangers, but as family. Every soul in that place had whispered his name through prophecy, through prayer, through longing. Now he stands among them in the fullness of glory, scars shining like trophies of mercy. He does not need to speak. They already know. The promise has come to collect them. In the unseen air, words begin to take form, ancient words of scripture rising like memory. You will not leave my soul in the realm of the dead, nor let your Holy One see decay. The prophecy has awakened. The line that once belonged to David now breathes through the Son of David. What was written has become visible, alive, unstoppable. In that instant, the entire realm shifts. The walls that held the faithful no longer feel like barriers. They begin to open like dawn. Chains that never moved begin to tremble, not from force but from recognition. Death knows it is losing jurisdiction. Across the chasm, the condemned sense it too. They see the light spilling into the distance and cry out, But the gulf remains. The separation still stands, for now, because Jesus has not come to end judgment, he has come to fulfill it. Paradise brightens, the air vibrates with a sound like distant thunder, the sound of doors unlocking. What began on a hill of death now unfolds beneath the earth, where hope takes its first full breath. The patriarchs bow, not out of fear, but reverence. The Savior who descended stands before them, not as a visitor, but as the one they had always known was coming. The shadows retreat, the righteous rise, and the sun prepares to speak into the very heart of death itself. Beyond the valley of light, the ground begins to change. The stillness that comforted the righteous fades into a pressure that feels alive. The air thickens, heavy with anger, memory, and fear. The deeper Jesus walks, the more ancient the sound becomes, an echo that is not sound at all, but defiance. This is the place Scripture calls the abyss, the lowest depth of Sheol, the region of rebellion. It is not only the home of the lost, but the cell of something older. Here are the spirits who once defied the boundaries of heaven, who corrupted the world before the flood. They are chained in darkness, waiting for the great day of judgment. Their prison is older than language, carved in silence and sealed by the command of God. No human light reaches this far, yet his presence breaks through, a radiance that the abyss cannot consume. The condemned recoil as if burned by purity itself. For the first time since the beginning of their confinement, they see what holiness looks like when it stands before them in flesh and glory. Every rebellion ever whispered in eternity had been aimed at this moment. Every temptation, every lie, every curse against mankind. Here, in the black heart of creation, Jesus faces not the consequence of sin, but its architects. The fallen spirits who once thought they could destroy the image of God now look upon the one who wears it perfectly. He does not speak yet. His silence is unbearable. Even the flames hesitate. The chains that hold the spirits tremble under the weight of his authority. They remember the voice that commanded the flood, the breath that scattered them into the deep. And now that voice stands before them again, not to warn but to declare. In the visible world, time moves slowly. The Sabbath rests upon Jerusalem. The disciples weep in locked rooms. Soldiers guard a sealed stone. They do not know that beneath the soil, judgment is already unfolding. Down here, even time bends its knee. The abyss that once swallowed hope now stares into something it cannot define, a light that does not belong to the created order. The fallen angels, the dark watchers of old, begin to understand that their end has already been written. The lamb they thought was slain is not their prisoner. He is their judge. Still, he waits. Every second is deliberate. Every movement fulfills prophecy. The cross was the payment, but this descent is the enforcement of that victory. Redemption is not only forgiveness, it is reclamation. The abyss quakes. The air swells with pressure, as if creation itself is holding its breath again. The condemned scream, the chains rattle, the void tightens, and then, in that heavy silence, the Son of God lifts his head. The King is about to speak, and the sound of his voice will shake every gate of hell. The silence in the abyss fractures. It begins with a vibration, low and distant, like thunder rolling under the ocean. The spirits in chains lift their heads. They feel something older than the world, authority. Then the voice comes. Not loud, not shouted. It carries no effort. It simply is. Every syllable cuts through the darkness like lightning through iron. It is the same voice that said, "Let there be light." The same voice that silenced storms, cast out legions, and raised the dead. Now it speaks to the first rebels of creation, to those who traded glory for shadow. "You thought the cross was my defeat," the voice seems to say, though no human ear can capture the words. You thought death could silence the promise, but the promise stands. The plan you tried to corrupt is finished. The air trembles. The abyss itself contracts, as if even darkness bows to the decree. This is not a sermon, it is a verdict. For millennia, these spirits had waited, bound in the deep since the days of Noah, beings that had crossed the boundary between heaven and earth, spreading corruption like disease. They had imagined their rebellion forgotten. Now they are reminded that eternity never forgets. Jesus does not descend to offer them hope. He comes to proclaim victory. Every realm must hear it, heaven, earth, and under the earth. The sound travels beyond words. It is truth embodied. The cross, the blood, the obedience, each now stands as evidence against them. Imagine the abyss reacting, walls of black stone cracking under unseen pressure, chains glowing white-hot, the very laws of the pit bending under divine authority. The cry of the condemned becomes a storm, but it cannot drown the message. In the visible world above, a soldier dozes beside the tomb, unaware that the one he pierced now shakes the foundations beneath his feet. Somewhere, a widow weeps. Somewhere else, a thief who died beside Christ smiles in the realm of light, hearing the echoes of that same declaration. For those imprisoned, the sound is terror. For those waiting in paradise, it is dawn. Because every word spoken here carries upward, through layers of reality, like shockwaves of revelation. The battle is not fought with swords or flame, it is fought with truth, the single, undeniable fact that sin and death no longer own dominion. The sun stands in the heart of the abyss, the light surrounding him like armor, the marks in his hands gleaming brighter than the fire itself. The proclamation ends not with shouting, but with stillness. Every creature, fallen or faithful, knows the verdict. It is finished. And when the echo fades, only one sound remains. The clatter of chains falling open, not the chains of the condemned, but of the captives who waited in hope. Because the next movement will not be judgment, it will be freedom. The echo of his voice still hangs in the air. The abyss is silent again, but not the same. The power that once ruled here has been broken at its roots. The fallen spirits, once proud and defiant, cower like dust before a storm. The gates of their empire have cracked, and they know it. Jesus stands at the center of that realm. His wounds shine brighter than any fire. The marks that once symbolized pain now pulse with authority. Where the world saw scars, hell sees signatures of ownership. In his hands glint the symbols of conquest, the keys of death and of hell. They are not iron or gold. They are the right to rule, the proof that authority has changed hands forever. Death no longer belongs to the destroyer. Its gates answer to another name now. The act is not a struggle. There is no fight, no resistance. With the same calm that stilled a storm and raised the dead, he claims what has always been his. The enemy's power dissolves like smoke in wind. In that moment, the prophecy whispered through generations awakens in full. He disarmed the principalities and powers and made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them. The triumph was not on a battlefield. It was in the silence of this descent. Here, unseen by the living, the greatest war in existence is being won without a single sword raised. The spirits cry out. The abyss trembles. The fire folds in on itself like cloth. The very laws of death bend to the presence of the one who conquered it by dying. The power of sin, built on accusation and fear, collapses under the weight of innocence. For every soul that would ever call his name, the prison doors begin to weaken. Far above, the tomb remains closed. The soldiers still guard the stone. The city sleeps, believing death has triumphed. But beneath their feet, the throne of death is empty. The accuser's crown lies in dust. The victory here is total, absolute, irreversible. What no man, no angel, no prophet could ever undo, the Son of God has accomplished alone. He has entered death's house, taken its keys, and left the door wide open. In the distance, the captives of paradise feel the tremor of release. They sense the shift, the vibration of hope turning into command. The king is coming back for them. The abyss, once the deepest depth of creation, begins to collapse inward, shrinking away from his presence. Darkness folds upon itself, retreating from the very light it tried to extinguish. Jesus turns from the fallen, carrying the keys in silence. Behind him, the fire dims. Ahead of him, a horizon glows like dawn through stone. The realm of torment fades in his wake, because the next step will not be downward. It will be toward freedom and an army of saints waiting to rise. The sound returns, not the roar of fire this time, but a rising wind, soft and radiant. Paradise stirs. Souls that once waited in patience lift their heads. The light they saw from afar now fills their horizon. The king is returning, not as a visitor, but as deliverer. Abraham recognizes him first. The promise he carried through centuries now stands before him, living and breathing. Behind him a multitude rises, Moses with the law that pointed to this day, Ruth whose lineage led to the Redeemer, David whose psalms had sung of this victory, Isaiah whose visions now stand fulfilled. They have waited in faith for this sound, the sound of chains loosening without touch, of doors opening without hands. The separation that defined their rest is ending. What had been peace without access will now become glory without distance. Jesus steps across the threshold that no one else could cross. The great chasm that divided comfort from torment folds beneath his feet. He moves not as one escaping death, but as one escorting life out of it. Every eye in paradise fixes on him. The air fills with a light so pure it seems to sing. The Lamb who was slain stands in their midst, carrying the marks of the cross as banners of triumph. He lifts his hand, not to command, but to invite. The invitation that had echoed through generations now becomes visible. Come forth. In a single breath, centuries of waiting end. The ground of paradise trembles as the souls of the faithful rise, radiant and weightless, clothed in the promise they once believed. The gates that had held them open like the dawn after endless night. This is the great Exodus, the moment when the righteous of old are led from the depths into the presence prepared for them. The path is not through desert or sea, but through death itself, now conquered and hollow. The Red Sea once split for a nation, now eternity itself parts for a family redeemed. Above, no one knows what is happening. The tomb remains sealed. Soldiers stand restless. The city mourns. But beneath, the true victory unfolds in silence, unseen by mortal eyes. The covenant made with Abraham, confirmed with Moses, sung by David, and foretold by prophets, is now complete. The bridge between God and man is no longer a prophecy. It is a person. The redeemed begin to ascend, led by the one who opened the gates of everlasting life. Behind them, paradise itself transforms. It is no longer a waiting room of faith. It becomes the first corridor of heaven. Jesus turns once more toward the fading realm of shadows. The fire no longer burns there. Its fuel is gone. The curse has met its cure. As he leads the multitude upward, the light follows. The abyss shrinks behind them, and the song of freedom rises like a tide. The king does not look back, because everything left behind has already been defeated. The ascent begins. It is not the rising of bodies through air, but the lifting of creation itself. Paradise folds upward like a scroll of light, carried by the one who has conquered the grave. Around him, a multitude moves. Souls once silent, now singing without words, their faces reflecting the brilliance of the Lamb. They follow him through a corridor that was never open before. Between heaven and earth, there had always been distance, a curtain woven from sin and death. But now, that curtain is gone. The same veil that tore in the temple has torn across eternity. The way is clear. In the unseen realms, angels line the path in silent awe. They have watched humanity fall and rise again, but never have they seen this. Mortals redeemed, walking behind their Creator toward the throne of unending light. Every wing trembles at the sound of his steps. He carries no weapon, no army, no crown of gold. His victory is marked by wounds, and yet those wounds shine like gems no universe could craft. In his hands, the keys of death glimmer with quiet authority. Every kingdom, visible and invisible, belongs to him now. At the gates of eternity, a voice thunders, not from judgment, but from recognition. Lift up your heads, O gates, lift them high, you everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. The ancient words of David unfold before their eyes. The doors obey, the everlasting thresholds swing open, not from power, but from joy. He enters the Holy of Holies that is not made by human hands, the eternal sanctuary. There is no shadow here, no division of light. The throne stands in radiance, unapproachable, yet he approaches. The blood that was spilled now speaks louder than every cry of sin. It does not accuse, it redeems. He offers no words. He simply stands before the Father, the marks in his hands gleaming like signatures of covenant. The silence of heaven deepens. The universe holds its breath. The blood of the Lamb bridges the last distance between God and humanity. In that single moment, eternity itself changes. The separation is over. The rebellion of Eden is undone. The way home has been written not in stone, but in flesh and glory. Above the earth, the dawn of the third day begins to break. The tomb still seems closed, but it is already obsolete, because resurrection is not the beginning of his victory, it is its revelation. The angels begin to sing, not because of what they see, but because of what has been accomplished. Heaven receives the Lamb, and the universe waits for the sound of a stone moving. The stone is still in place. Soldiers stand beside it, unaware that the universe above and below them has already shifted. What looks like stillness is only the pause between eternity and time. The third day has come. In the depths of creation, every law of decay begins to reverse. Where death once ruled by right, its throne is empty. The keys that hung in its halls are gone. The gates stand open, useless, defeated. The breath of God moves once more through the realm of dust and bone. Inside the tomb, silence reigns, but not absence. The linen cloths lie folded, still holding the shape of what they no longer contain. The air is thick with promise, as if waiting for the first sound of eternity entering flesh again. Then, without flash or thunder, life returns. The body that bore the weight of the world rises, unbroken, radiant. The same hands that held the keys of death now push against the stone, not to escape, but to reveal what was already accomplished. Light floods the chamber. The guards tremble and fall. The stone rolls away, not by human strength, but by the will of heaven itself. The air outside shatters with the first breath of the resurrected King. He stands in the early light of the third morning. The marks remain, proof not of defeat, but of dominion. The victory declared in the depths now manifests in the world of men. Death has lost its claim, hell has lost its hold, and the universe, which groaned since the first sin, exhales. The curse is undone. The story of man has been rewritten, not with ink, but with blood that cannot be erased. Somewhere nearby, a garden stirs. Flowers that bowed under the night rise toward the dawn. A woman weeps, unaware that the one she mourns stands behind her. When he speaks her name, creation itself seems to sigh in relief. Mary. The first word of the new creation is spoken with tenderness. Far beyond that garden, in unseen realms, the saints he led from the depths watch the earth awaken. They are not bound anymore. The gates of paradise are open, they're waiting over. The Lamb has done what no angel or man could do. He has turned death into a doorway. Heaven celebrates in silence, not with trumpets, but with awe. The plan hidden before time is now complete. The Son who descended into darkness has risen into glory, carrying humanity with him. And as the sun climbs above the horizon, its light seems different, warmer, alive, eternal, because it shines on a world that will never again belong to death. The garden is still, the air carries the scent of dew and stone. Somewhere, a tomb stands open, sunlight spilling across the threshold like a promise kept. The Lamb who was slain now walks in the cool of morning, the same way God once walked with man in Eden. Creation breathes again. He steps outside the grave, not escaping it, but transforming it. Death, once the final sentence, has become the first word of eternity. The shadows that once claimed the earth now retreat before him, because light no longer has boundaries. He looks toward the horizon. The city that condemned him still sleeps. Soldiers whisper about the missing body, priests count their fears, and his disciples sit behind closed doors, unaware that everything has already changed. The victory that began in the depths is now complete upon the soil of the living. The descent into hell was the conquest of justice. The resurrection is the revelation of that victory to the world. The chains have fallen, the keys are claimed, and the kingdom has begun. Every sound of nature seems different now. The wind softer, the birds louder, the heartbeat of the world steady again. It is as if creation itself remembers its maker. He walks among the graves, the very ground that once drank his blood. And in that quiet morning, even the tombs seem to understand. They no longer belong to death. Above, angels watch in silence. They witnessed his agony, his descent, his victory, and now his return. Their songs are not of pity, but of wonder. The Son of God, who went lower than any soul could fall, now stands higher than any being can rise. Soon he will reveal himself to those who love him. He will show them his wounds, not as reminders of pain, but as emblems of power. He will breathe peace over their fear and send them into the world as witnesses of what no eye has seen before. But before all that, there is stillness, holy, sacred stillness, a world between breaths. Heaven and earth united for the first time since the dawn of creation. He lifts his eyes toward the Father. The mission is finished. The separation is over. The gates of eternity stand open, and in that silence filled with sunlight and promise, the universe knows the truth. The one who descended into hell has returned, not as a victim, but as the everlasting King. If you've made it here, it means this story touched something eternal inside you. Because this is not just history, it's the heartbeat of salvation itself. Jesus didn't descend into darkness to prove his strength. He did it to find you, to reach every soul that ever thought they were too far gone. There is no pit he has not entered, no chain he has not broken, no distance he cannot cross. If this truth has awakened your faith, write in the comments, "He went deeper for me." Your words may be the light someone else needs to read tonight. If you believe others should know that death is no longer the end, share this video with someone who fears the unknown. Let them see that the grave is not the final door. It's the doorway to life. And if this message has spoken to your spirit, subscribe to Bible Stories and Mysteries and turn on the bell so you never miss the next revelation we uncover together. We create each episode with reverence, research, and prayer, because these aren't just stories, they are encounters with eternity. If you feel led to support this mission, you can do it through the Super Thanks button right below. Every act of generosity helps us bring the word to more hearts around the world. Thank you for walking this journey with us, because where there was once only darkness, now there is light. And that light has a name, Jesus Christ, the one who descended, conquered, and reigns forever.